This is chapter 1 of my novel Elsing Lenore. Chapter 1 is titled Perfection Personified, and I hope you enjoy. I fell in love with her thoughts, her keen ability to assimilate the abstract with the absolute, her oddly optimistic view on her pessimistic tendencies. A mind so beautiful men would fantasize about it. That was my love. But when metaphoric winter hit, and the wind chimes howled for help, nightmares came in the form of hope, and at last temptation would conquer all. I became stricken with illness. Mental became physical, then back to mental. If only the asylum and the hospital were one place, I might have been saved. But as I looked into the darkness, and I thought I heard the thoughts that once frolicked freely through her magnificent mind in a gleeful bliss, I followed my eyes, my ears, my hope, and my heart into the darkness, and that is where my journey began. It was the coldest evening in December, arguably the coldest of the year, though I wasn't out enough to know for certain. The air had a green tint to it, like moss growing on a murky pond. 20 paces and I had already forgotten why I had left. I just couldn't stop thinking about how stupid the sky looked green. It was only then on my aimless endeavor through the park that I would stumble upon a peculiar yellow dress. It was an odd choice of attire, even disregarding the frightful frigid winds or the savage polar bears that were all too common in our region. Forget all of that. You just don't wear a dress like that in any occasion ever. It wasn't just any bargain bin dress. No, it was reminiscent of that iconic dress from that delightful children's movie. It came to me all too certainly that she must be the beauty and I must be the beast, and if that wasn't so, then nothing was true. As you can tell, I had already taken a dip into the psychotic, though at the time I remember thinking how crazy I must have been to not have realized this before. So there I sat in a discreet corner in my apartment, plotting out my plan to win her heart, and I think it might have all worked out if not for the chaos that ensued. Step 1. Do your homework. The phrase "do your homework" was normally affiliated with overly attentive, nagging parents, or sometimes used as the first step to solve a crime or commit one. For me, it was the precursor to my, I guess you could say, obsession with Elsing Lenore. She worked for a local magazine, in one of those offices where kindliness was nothing more than an illusion to the feeble-minded. The smiles and laughter only existed outside of your cubicle. Inside, however, you drew explicit pictures of you murdering your boss, or threw darts at that picture of the girl who thinks her repetitious jokes are humorous. These acts of animosity might spring some inspiration, so you jot down a sentence on a post-it note, and then reopen the tab of that website where ignorant minds post unoriginal ideals. I understand the disposition of those working in an uninspired writing position. I myself was a freelance writer, and strongly disliked everyone in my office, my cat Henry, and of course me. Elsing Lenore had always had a talent with words. I remember her satirical pieces in the Westford High School Times. She would often openly bash teachers in writing, who were too dim-witted to grasp her underlying meanings. She jumped at any reason to write, opinionated blogs, newspapers, magazines, even a sports column. Interviewing the football players under Friday night lights, where the glow of her smile would be even more radiant. They would throw their stale game at her, and she would tell them to find their trophies elsewhere. I collected every word she ever publicized. I'd snip them out and tape them on the wall in a big collage. It didn't stop there. I collected everything that I could tie to her. Coffee receipts she tossed away, movie tickets stuck in her seat, petals she plucked off the seasonal flowers. It made me wonder where the line between romantic and obsessive, and how that line moves depending on how handsome you are, and how I must be approaching that line, but I didn't care because I knew that I loved Elsing Lenore more than any man could, and I hoped that counted for something. With the passing of the hands on the clock, the image began to take form. I could visualize the curves and the quirks, a rough silhouette of a masterpiece. I slipped a crooked smile, wiping the sweat from my brow, biting into an expired apple. It was a great moment, standing on paper clippings in an otherwise empty apartment with walls I had painted and repainted over It was a great moment, standing on paper clippings in an otherwise empty room with walls I'd painted and repainted a dozen times over. My hand twitched rapidly from the brown undertone of an apple wreaking a moldy imprint on an otherwise perfect moment. I dashed to the window maniacally, cocking back my arm and launching the apple to its long-awaited end. A burden released from my lungs. I collapsed down to the floor with my back dripping down the wall. I watched the last orange lights dipping from the adjacent wall, slowly creeping towards my outstretched feet, my toes patiently waiting for the warmth of the sun. I wonder if that's how Lenore felt, patiently waiting for a wave of warmth, for an infectious, everlasting joy, for me. The next morning I took the city on my bike. I packed a few novels, a pocket-sized journal, and my cat Henry. I swear that cat only used me. She was only obedient when she wanted something, like food or a stroll through the city. She refused all my acts of endearment, so I named her Henry. I moved to the city upon graduation in hopes of finding a plethora of work opportunities. 2 years later, and my main source of income was my weekly obituary column. Lenore was basically plucked from our town and basketed into the city. They clamored for her outlandish beauty and her uncanny words of wit. The city so desperately desired to be affiliated with her name, her prestige, as did I. See, there are two types of people in this expressively hungry world. Those who beg for others to hear their opinions, and those whose opinions are begged to be heard. If you are part of the first half, like me, I can assure you that the world will seem impossibly lonely. If you are part of the later half, I imagine the grand earth would seem unfathomably claustrophobic. Neither could be considered an inspiring fate, but I'd rather hear screams in a snow globe than listen to the echoes of oblivion. I was always fascinated by cities, how the sum really was greater than the parts, where vast amounts of remedial workers, high crime rates, and severe building corruption came off as high-cultured and diverse. The skyscraping buildings that inspired awe, until we realized its Pareto's principles' belittling glare. Old York, I was told, is the most beloved city of our nation, but as I pedaled my bike through its narrow veins, I had a hard time encompassing this conceptual love. I remember Henry sinking her jagged teeth into my uncovered ears, signaling that I must feed her. I snugged my bike into a nearby rack, crossing the street to the Asian Mart. They doubled as a store and a restaurant, and served lo mein noodles to Henry's liking, dry with extra veggies. I swear the owner thought that I ordered them specially for my girlfriend. He'd always gave me this odd smile when handing my order over to me, though I continued to tell him it's for my cat. I settled down on an abandoned bench near the crosswalk. People glared with disgust as Henry jumped into the box of noodles. Her dire and unapologetic love for Chinese food always made me laugh. I choked down a few forkfuls of rice and poultry. I didn't particularly like Oriental food, but if Henry liked it, I guess I could learn to like it too. Then my fork flew to the ground as if comprised of only cement. Out from the monumental stairs only a minute's walk away came that peculiar yellow dress, accompanied with a matching umbrella. So I flipped my bag over my shoulders and pried Henry's claws from the styrofoam and noodles and hopped on her trail. I wouldn't let her get away.